There was a time black girl groups ran the game. Charts dominated. Millions sold easy. Sellout tours every single night. Now, crickets. They got shoved aside for solo acts, hip-hop, and these rainbow diverse girl groups that popped up after the Spice Girls. But hold up, I'm not talking about the mixed crews. I'm talking real black girl groups, inner city queens who created sisterhood on stage, stacked those harmonies like nobody else. These women had millions of records sold and had hit after hit, and then poof. No more Destiny's Child, no SWV, no TLC, In Vogue, Escape, 702, Total, Black. Hell, not even legends like the Supremes, LaBelle, or Sister Sledge have a true successor carrying that torch. For the last couple decades, we've had no iconic, high-charting black girl group to call our own. So here's the question that keeps me up at night. What happened? In this video, I'm taking you back to the iconic girl groups of yesteryear, shining light on some forgotten pioneers you probably never heard of, and breaking down every single decade until we land in this commercial dry spell we're stuck in right now. Stick with me, because the answer might surprise you. This is part 1, 50s to the 80s. If you already know your girl groups, you know the big ones. Destiny's Child, TLC, the Supremes, the Emotions. But wait, did you know who the first black girl groups were that actually cracked the charts? Hold up, don't worry, I'll wait. Boom, too late. Here's a quick history lesson that might blow your mind. Most people think that the 1960s was when black girl groups started dropping classics. You'd be wrong. Way before that, back in the mid-50s, the Teen Queens, a pair of sisters named Betty and Rosie Collins, along with Helen Huddleston from Los Angeles, became one of the very first black girl groups to impact pop. They blended doo-wop and rock and roll like nobody else. In 1956, they dropped Eddie My Love, and it peaked at number 14 on the Hot 100 and top 5 on the R&B charts. That was just the beginning. They also gave us straight heat like Baby Mine, Just Goofed, Dear Tommy, and Billy Boy. Next up, and no, psych, it wasn't the Supremes, it was the Bobettes. These Harlem schoolgirls formed in 1955, wrote their own hits, and sang straight doo-wop fire. Their debut single, Mr. Lee, came out in 1957 and became the first black girl group song to crack the top 10 on the pop charts, number 6 pop and number 1 R&B. It's all still so legendary that it sits at number 79 on Billboard's 100 Greatest Girl Group Songs of All Time. They followed it up with more crossover bangers like Have Mercy Baby, Dance With Me Georgie, and I Don't Like It Like That. Then came the Chantels in the late 50s, stacking multiple top 40 R&B and crossover hits, maybe with number 2 on the R&B charts and 15 pop. After that, Every Night I Pray, Summer's Love, I Love You So, and, well, I told you, they were charting from 1958 all the way to 1961, and they were the first black girl group to score multiple top 40 hits starting all the way back in the 1950s. These queens didn't just sing, they kicked the door down. Everything after them built on their foundation. The girl groups from the 1950s kicked the door wide open, and these legends didn't just run with the torch, they shattered records that still haven't been broken decades later. The decade kicked off in 1961 with the Shirelles and their classic, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? It wasn't just the first number 1 R&B and pop hit for a black girl group, it was the first number 1 by any girl group in history. Now that's iconic. That same year, in December, the Michigan-born Marvelettes became the first successful girl group from Motown Records with the second number 1 crossover hit by any girl group with the classic Please, Mr. Postman. The Shirelles had 12 more top 40 crossover hits through the decade, dedicated to The One I Love, Mama Said, Baby It's You, 11 of which were top 40 R&B hits and 6 top 10 pop record hits. Berry Gordy, the visionary behind Motown, gave the world Stevie Wonder, Mary Wells, the Jackson 5, the Temptations, and some of the most legendary girl groups ever. all of which stacked multiple top 40 and top 10 R&B crossover smashes. Martha and the Vandellas brought us timeless anthems like Dancing in the Street, Come and Get These Memories, and Nowhere to Run, every single one a top 10 crossover hit. We can't forget about the Ronettes either. Their holiday banger Sleigh Ride actually charted at number 8 in 2023 once Christmas songs became eligible. And of course their biggest smash, Be My Baby, a top 5 crossover hit that still hits different, led by the unstoppable Veronica Bennett and her sister Estelle and Nidra Talley. Then there were the glamorous Crystals, with their number 1 crossover, He's a Rebel, and a string of other top 10 classics, and Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, Patti, Cindy Birdsong, Nona Hendrix, and Sarah Dash were all burning up the charts too. But now, we have to talk about the Supremes. After groups like the Marvelettes, the Bobettes cracked the door open, the Supremes stepped through as a foursome. Florence Ballard, her best friend Mary Wilson, Betty McGlown, and of course, Diana Ross. They started off as the Primettes, sister group to the Primes. They struggled hard in the beginning. Berry Gordy turned them down in 1960, said they were too young, still in high school. But these girls were still determined. They performed at every local talent show, hung around the Motown offices adding background vocals and hand claps for Stevie Wonder and Mary Wells. Betty, however, got engaged and left and was replaced by Barbara Martin. Gordy reluctantly signed them in January 1961, but made them change their name. Florence picked the Supremes because it sounded fresh. Early records flopped. I Want a Guy, Buttered Popcorn. And they even got a nickname, the No-Hit Supremes. The No-Hit Supremes.
The No-Hit Supremes.
And you all were known as the No-Hit Supremes.
We were called the No-Hit Supremes by Martha and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, the Temptations. We actually were one of the first girl groups there at Motown, and so other girl groups came like the Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas, and they had hit records before we did. So although we were very good, people just, teased us behind our backs that we were the No-Hit Supremes, and we were.
Yeah, that was a big ouch, but they definitely showed them at the end. Barbara left to start a family, leaving them as a trio, the iconic Big Three, of Diana Ross, Florence Ballard, and Mary Wilson. Gordy made big moves. He put Diana Ross as the exclusive lead singer because of her youthful voice and star power, paired them with legendary producers Holland Dozier Holland, and gave them a polished image, stage coaching, and etiquette classes. And then, they ran the 60s. 12 number 1 Hot 100 hits at records that still stands unbroken to this day, 18 top 10 singles, 4 more top 40s. They sold over 40 million records in the US alone and more than 100 million worldwide, with hits like Where Did Our Love Go, I Hear a Symphony, Baby Love, Stop in the Name of Love, The Happening, so many more. I can go all day. Florence Ballard, however, was let go in 1967 and replaced by Cindy Birdsong. Yes, the same Cindy from Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, chosen because she looks so much like Florence and, like Miss Ballard, was a soprano who could easily blend with Diana and Mary. There was tension, favoritism towards Diana, the Vegas incident in 1967 where Florence gave a drunken performance after seeing the billing of Diana Ross and the Supremes. But even with the internal drama, they kept the charts on lock through the rest of the decade, helping to keep the girl group flame alive along with the Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas, and the rest. These women didn't just sing, they changed music forever. Girl groups did not miss a beat heading into the 1970s. The sound shifted hard from doo-wop and street pop to funky disco and bold R&B, giving these sisters an edgier, sexier dynamic. Soul Train became the new cultural king. Any act that hit that stage saw their star power explode the same way Ed Sullivan had done for artists back in the 60s, especially groups. And we gotta give it up to Ed Sullivan, putting black acts on mainstream American television during segregation, civil rights marches, Vietnam, and all the other racial tension that was going on at the time. Black music became the soul that united everybody, bringing bright optimism when the world needed it the most. The Supremes carried the torch forward with their new lineup: Jean Terrell on lead,
veteran Mary Wilson and Cindy Birdsong. They kept the hits coming early in the decade with hits like Up the Ladder to the Roof, Stone Love, Floyd Joy, scoring 8 more top 40 pop and R&B hits. Even with the lineup changes throughout the 70s, they stayed strong, charting all the way up into their official disbandment in 1977. Right out the gate, the Pointer Sisters dropped heat with multiple Hot 100 and R&B classics like Yes We Can, Fire, Fairy Tale, so many more. Groups like Honeycomb, High Energy, and Sister Sledge kept the momentum rolling, stacking R&B and pop hits and straight dominating the charts. Then came LaBelle, Patti LaBelle leading the rebrand from Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. They brought that 70s futurism with wild costumes and a standout presence that set them apart from everybody else. Classics like Lady Marmalade, Messing With My Mind, and It Is a Shame didn't just chart, they influenced the whole look and vibe of future girl groups that came. We can't forget about the 3 Degrees, whose The Sound of Philadelphia became a masterpiece and a Soul Train staple, hitting #1 on the Hot 100. And The Emotions? They delivered 15 top 40 R&B hits, including the hit Best of My Love that went #1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B charts.
So as you can see,
Black girl groups were ruling the decade, dropping classic after classic, spreading girl power, and bringing way more edge, funk, and sex appeal than the more polished 60s sound. They moved the culture forward, sold millions of records, and gave us way too many hits to dance and groove to.
groovy, right? But the 80s weren't as groovy.
To put it lightly, a major shift happened. A lot of people think the decline of black girl groups came much later, but the truth is the 80s almost became the extinction event for black girl groups as we know. The 80s moved away from the funk and disco that ruled the previous decade, leaning hard into electric, rock, and pop influenced sounds. Just like we saw in the later half of the 70s, girl groups took an even edgier turn, trading in those light harmonies and classic elegance for bolder, dance-heavy tracks. The Jones Girls were among one of the last to hold on into the classic girl group dynamic. They had charted in the top 40 in the late 70s with You're Gonna Make Me Love Someone Else, and then scored multiple top 40 R&B hits in the early 80s before getting phased out for the new wave of electronic, sexy girl groups that took over the rest of the decade. There's also the Sequence that came out in the late 70s that was one of the first female rap groups to come out, with Uptown Funk You Up in 1979 and I Don't Need Your Love in 1982, with members like Angie B, Blondie, and Cheryl the Pearl. Angie B, aka Angie Stone, went on to become a neo-soul legend. Vanity 6, the spicy trio from Prince's background singers, made their nasty debut in 1983 with Nasty Girl, which shot to number 7 on the charts. With lead singer Denise, Vanity Matthews, Brenda Bennett, and Suzanne Moniz, they dropped heaters like He's So Dull, Drive Me Wild, and Bite the Beat. Vanity soon left to go solo, but their impact was undeniable. Then came the Mary Jane Girls, background singers straight out of another superstar's camp, Rick James. They were named after his love for a certain special plant. Led by Joanne JoJo McDuffie, they created bold onstage personas to make each member stand out. Candy, the supermodel, Maxie as the dominatrix, Sherry as the valley girl, and of course the lead, JoJo, as the street smart persona. They gave us endless 80s classics like All Night Long, Boys, Wild and Crazy Love, and their biggest commercial smash, My House, which climbed all the way to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and is still considered one of the greatest songs by any girl group.
Did you notice something different about these last two groups? You're not crazy, because I did too.
Despite beautiful black lead vocalists carrying the sound, both Vanity 6 and the Mary Jane Girls had at least one token non-black member.
Man, it ain't nothing wrong with a little diversity. It's always welcomed.
Besides the Jones Girls and the Pointer Sisters, true all-black girl groups were becoming harder and harder to find on the commercial charts. We still did have the powerful gospel voices of the Weather Girls, who dropped the classic It's Raining Men, a staple in the LGBTQ+ community to this day. And speaking of the Pointer Sisters, they kept the ball rolling from the 70s, blazing the charts with songs like Jump, Automatic, and the unstoppable I'm So Excited.
But as the decade pushed forward to the mid to late 80s, a major shift took over.
Hip-hop exploded and started capturing the hearts and attention of the urban youth. Acts like LL Cool J, Slick Rick, Run DMC, NWA, Public Enemy, and Eric B. and Rakim dominated the conversation. NWA's Eazy-E saw the wave coming and got the bright idea to sign an all-girl rap group. That's how JJ Fad landed on Ruthless Records. With Dr. Dre and DJ Yella perfecting the production, they dropped the major gold-selling crossover hit Supersonic, one of the greatest songs by any rap group ever. And these ladies didn't just look good, they had bars. Then, coming from Queens, New York, Cheryl Salt James, Sandra Pepper Denton, and DJ Spinderella came together to form Salt and Pepper. It all started when Cheryl and Sandra were co-workers at Sears. They recorded a rap for a school project called The Showstopper, and their manager, who also happened to be Salt's boyfriend, turned it into a demo and they signed to Next Plateau Records. They took the torch pass from JJ Fad and absolutely blazed the charts from the late 80s straight into the mid 90s. It started with the top 20 classic Push It, followed by Let's Talk About Sex, Expression, Shake Your Thing, and What a Man. They scored 10 top 10 rap hits, with 8 of them becoming major crossovers and sold over 15 million records worldwide. Wow. Their album, Very Necessary, moved over 4 million copies in the US by itself. Still one of the best-selling albums by any female rap group to this day. These girls were straight fire. And then there was Climax.
Very interesting name, but once you get your head out the gutter, you realize that these women had very distinctive talent.
I'm talking about Climax, the group, the all-female band that ruled the mid-80s. These girls didn't just sing, they played keyboards, drums, produced, and wrote songs from scratch. They gave us the crossover hits like The Men All Pause, I Miss You, Meeting in the Ladies' Room, and I'd Still Say Yes.
By the tail end of the 80s, something hopeful started to flicker. All black, all-female girl groups looked like they just might make a commercial comeback.
Good Girl snuck through the door in 1989, dropping multiple top 40 and top 10 R&B hits. Despite not charting that much on the Hot 100, they still cracked the door open and set the standard and format for the golden age that was about to arrive.